You send a text, 3 dots appear, then they vanish, nothing comes back. For the rest of the day, some quiet part of you keeps checking your phone just in case. You tell yourself it's nothing. You have better things to think about. But your body doesn't believe you, and it keeps pulling your attention back to that one unanswered message. That small ache isn't weakness. It isn't overthinking, and it isn't you being too sensitive. It's something much older than the phone in your hand, older than language itself, and by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why a silence can feel louder than a shout. Here's what most people get wrong. They think being ignored is a small thing, a modern inconvenience, a bruised ego at worst. But your brain doesn't file it that way. When someone goes quiet on you, your nervous system doesn't read mildly annoying, it reads danger. And that reaction was built for a world that no longer exists, wired into a body that hasn't caught up. To understand why, you have to go back further than any conversation you've ever had, back to when you were an infant, and your survival depended entirely on being noticed. Here's a detail most people never think about. Compared to every other primate, a human baby is born strikingly unfinished. A baby zebra can stand and run within an hour of birth. Even a baby chimpanzee can cling to its mother's fur almost immediately. A human infant can't even hold up its own head. You arrived into the world completely unable to feed yourself, move yourself, or protect yourself from anything. Every single thing that kept you alive depended on someone else noticing you needed it and responding. That's not a metaphor. That is the literal, physical arrangement your species evolved under. In the late 1950s, a psychologist named Harry Harlow ran an experiment that still unsettles people today. He separated baby rhesus monkeys from their mothers and gave them 2 substitutes. One was made of bare wire, but it held a bottle of milk. The other was covered in soft cloth, but offered no food at all. Logic says the babies should have clung to the one that fed them. They didn't. They spent almost all their time clinging to the cloth mother, and only left it, briefly, to feed. When Harlow frightened them with a loud noise or a strange object, they didn't run to the wire mother with the milk. They ran straight back to the soft, unresponsive cloth figure, not for food, for contact, for the feeling of being held. Being fed kept them alive for a day. Being held, being noticed, was what their nervous system was actually built to need. Human infants are no different. And for most of our history, the stakes were higher, not lower. You weren't born into a house with a locked door and a fridge full of food. You were born into a small band of people, maybe 30, maybe 50, everyone known by name, everyone's survival tangled up with everyone else's. In a world like that, a caregiver noticing you and responding wasn't a nice bonus. It was the entire system keeping you alive. Around the same time, a British psychiatrist named John Bowlby was building the theory that would explain why. He called it attachment theory. His argument was simple, and at the time, radical. The bond between an infant and a caregiver isn't just an emotional nicety, something soft and optional layered on top of survival. It is a survival system, every bit as load-bearing as breathing or blood pressure. For nearly all of human history, a baby who wasn't noticed, wasn't picked up, wasn't responded to when it cried, was a baby in mortal danger. So evolution didn't leave that bond to chance. It wired your brain to treat being ignored as a 5-alarm emergency, because for most of the species' existence, it genuinely was one. You were never actually in danger from that unanswered text. But the part of your brain that reacts to silence doesn't know the difference between right now and 200,000 years ago. It only knows one thing. Someone who mattered to you stopped responding. And on some deep, wordless level, that still means you might be left behind. Now here's where it gets specific to you. Not everyone responds to that ancient alarm the same way. The alarm is universal, but the strategy you built to survive it is personal. Watch closely, and you'll probably recognize yourself in one of 3 patterns. The first is the achiever. As a child, being ignored didn't feel like an emergency you could run from, so you learned to earn your way out of it instead. Good grades, good behavior, being useful, being impressive, being the one who never causes a problem. If silence is dangerous, the logic goes, then being undeniable is the cure. Nobody overlooks the person who's clearly the best in the room. As an adult, this shows up as chronic overpreparing, over-explaining, saying yes to one more project than you can actually handle. Underneath all of it sits a quiet terror of being forgettable. The second is the ghost. If being seen led to disappointment often enough, some children learn the opposite lesson. Make yourself smaller, and it will hurt less when no one looks. Don't ask for too much. Don't take up space you might get punished for occupying. As an adult, the ghost struggles to say out loud what they actually need and quietly assumes most people wouldn't notice if they left the room. Not out of self-pity, out of old, careful math. The third is the Peacemaker. This one learns to read a room before anyone else does. Every shift in tone, every long pause, every slight change in someone's voice gets scanned for danger, instantly and automatically. If you can sense a mood change before it fully happens, you can get ahead of it, smooth it over, keep the silence from ever landing on you. As an adult, this looks like people-pleasing that isn't really about kindness at all. It's early warning radar, running constantly, in the background, even at rest. 3 different strategies, built by 3 different childhoods. One shared root underneath all of them, a nervous system that learned, early and thoroughly, that being ignored was something to survive. Most people aren't purely one type. You might lead with the achiever at work and slide into the ghost at home, or become the peacemaker the moment a room feels tense and switch back the second it passes. That's not a contradiction. It just means more than one part of you learned this lesson, in more than one place, at more than one time. Here's the part almost nobody tells you though. That hypervigilance you might recognize in yourself right now isn't a flaw in your wiring. It's proof the wiring works exactly as designed. In 2003, a researcher named Naomi Eisenberger ran an experiment using a simple computer game where participants believed they were tossing a virtual ball back and forth with 2 other players. In reality, the other 2 players weren't real people at all. Partway through the game, they simply stopped throwing the ball to the actual participant. Left them out, for no reason, with no explanation. While this was happening, Eisenberger was scanning the participants' brains, and she found something remarkable. The same brain region that activates during physical pain lit up again, in real time. Being excluded from a pointless game with strangers triggered the same circuitry as a physical injury. Your brain isn't speaking in metaphor when it says being ignored hurts. For your nervous system, exclusion and physical pain are processed as close cousins, almost interchangeably. And once you remember what exclusion actually meant for most of human history, that stops being strange and starts making perfect sense. A person cast out of the group didn't just feel bad. They usually didn't survive long. No group meant no protection from predators, no share of the food, no one to notice if you didn't come back from the waterhole. Being ignored wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was often the first stage of dying alone. So, when your chest tightens over a message that never got a reply, that isn't oversensitivity. That's an ancient alarm system doing exactly the job it evolved to do, just aimed at a target it was never built for. And that mismatch is running quietly through your life right now, if you know where to look for it. It's in the extra 10 minutes you spend polishing an email that didn't need polishing, because somewhere underneath, being ignored at work still feels like being cast out of the group. It's in the loop of checking a read receipt over and over, not because you actually think something is wrong, but because your body needs the update, the same way it once needed to know the tribe was still nearby. It's in the friend who goes quiet for a few days, and the way your mind quietly starts rehearsing every possible thing you might have done wrong. It's even in the small, sharp sting of a meeting where someone repeats your idea 5 minutes later and gets the credit you didn't get. It's in the particular flavor of hurt when someone you're dating takes hours to reply and you find yourself rereading the last message for clues, even though nothing about it has changed since the last time you read it. None of that is drama, and none of it means something is broken in you. It's the same circuitry from Harlow's monkeys, the same alarm Bowlby mapped, the same pain response Eisenberger found lighting up over a game with a virtual ball, just running now in a body that lives in a world of group chats and read receipts instead of tribes and firelight. Which brings us back to that text, the 3 dots that appeared, then disappeared, then nothing at all. You already know the ending isn't really about the message. It's about a nervous system built over hundreds of thousands of years to treat being overlooked as one of the most dangerous things that could happen to you. You didn't invent that fear, And you didn't choose it. You inherited it, fully assembled, from every single ancestor who survived by never letting the group forget they existed. So the next time silence lands harder than it should, you don't have to ask what's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's just a very old, very loyal alarm system, still quietly trying to keep you from being left behind. It has been running that same job for longer than any language, any city, any phone has existed. It doesn't know the group is now a group chat. It doesn't know the waterhole is now a reply that's taking too long to come. All it knows is the one instruction it was given, generations before you were born. Notice when you go quiet, because a version of you that got left behind never got to pass anything on. You did. That's not luck. That's the alarm working.